When you go out with a guy you like, it's a refreshing and romantic experience. It's hard to make meaningful connections these days, and finding somebody you click with is a great thing. But what if he didn't feel what you did? That's when you're left asking yourself, will he ask me on a second date or not? Here are the signs that he will. Number 1. He's shy about asking you out the first time. Will he ask me on a second date? It's something you may be wondering about if the first date wasn't that bad but wasn't a home run either. One of the best ways to tell is if he was shy about asking you out the first time. The reason this can be a surprising signal that he's interested in more than one date is that guys who are very smooth about asking you out may turn out to be players. Confidence is great and all, but a guy who flawlessly asks you out could have more of a physical encounter in mind. That's why sometimes it's actually a good sign if he's a bit flustered when first asking you out. It means he's genuine in wanting to go out with you and likely interested in more than just sex. Number 2, he'll tell you his schedule in advance. Guys aren't always the most subtle creatures, and sometimes he'll just blurt out his schedule with you while you're on a date. This is basically the man equivalent of telling you he wants to see you again. Is it a little overeager in some cases? Honestly, yes, but it can also be heartfelt and sweet. By cluing you in to what he has coming up, he's setting the stage for more to happen in the future and basically giving you a preview of his commitments. Number 3, he'll leave you with a feeling that what's meant to happen will happen. One of the strongest signs that there will be a second date doesn't come from him. It comes from you. When you leave the first date with a strong intuition that there's going to be another date, it's often because you've worked on your relationship with yourself and it's strong. You're not dependent on his interest, and that tends to make him all the more interested. Number 4, he was nervous and awkward on the first date. In addition to paying attention to his behaviour when he asked you out, look at how he behaved on the first date. Was he Mr. Cool, slipping his arm around you and going for a kiss at just the right time? Or was he a bit more of a Mr. Bumble and tripped over his own shoelaces while trying to open the door for you on the way in the restaurant for dinner? There's nothing wrong if he was pretty confident. That can be attractive after all. But one of the top signs that he's more of a romantic is that he's not completely put together. He has some loose ends and is taking things as they come and still finding his feet. On the other hand, if the first date was basically one-sided, don't wait around for a second. Number 5, he'll be a gentleman about money. Guys who are looking for a quick fling or some cheap entertainment often turn out to be pretty stingy. One of my female friends ended up out with a guy who refused to pay $5 for a drink and a piece of pizza after her date. Needless to say, she did not go home with him that night. This despicable behaviour is more common than many people realise, and I know that, as a guy, I was also shocked. Even if he was only after something short term, why wouldn't this fairly well-off, middle-aged guy cough up $5 after a night out? Well, in addition to being a sign of a selfish guy you want to avoid, failure to pay up usually means that he basically doesn't value you. If you're looking for a sign that he'll ask you out again, look at his behaviour around money and being a gentleman. Does he at least offer to pay for your date, or does he shirk the topic? This can tell you a lot about whether a date 2 is on the horizon. Number 6, he'll compliment you but not in a sleazy way. Another one of the good signs that there will be a second date is that he actually says nice things to you which aren't only sexual or leading to sex. It's perfectly fine if some of these compliments relate to you being attractive, fascinating, or sexy. It's all about how he delivers them and the kind of response he's hoping for. If he's pushy and classless about it, then you have a good sign that he's looking for a one-nighter. But if his compliments are thought out and sincere, then it's more likely he's hoping to get to know you better and date you again in the future. Number 7, the first date doesn't end in sex or physical intimacy. If you have sex on your first date, that's your business. I'm not here to police around your personal life. But what I will say is that having sex too quickly can be one of the biggest signs that leads to having only one date, or having future dates which aren't dates but are actually booty calls. If the first date goes a bit slower, it's much more likely that it will have time to blossom into something that's less about sex and more about getting to know each other better. Could you have wild sex and also develop a deep connection that leads to date 2? Of course. I'm just saying that overall, it's less likely that you'll have a second date worth talking about if you jump into bed on the first. Number 8, a gifted advisor confirms it. The signs above and below in this video will give you a good idea of whether he'll pop the question and ask you on a second date. Even so, it can be very worthwhile to speak to a highly intuitive person and get guidance from them. They can answer all sorts of relationship questions and take away your doubts and worries. Like, is there going to be date number 2? Are you meant to be with him? I recently spoke to someone from Psychic Source after going through a rough patch in my relationship. After being lost in my thoughts for so long, they gave me a unique insight into where my life was going, including who I was meant to be with. I was actually blown away by how kind, compassionate and knowledgeable they were. I've linked to Psychic Source in the description below. Check it out and get your own love reading. In this love reading, a gifted advisor can tell you whether you're going to see a lot more of this guy, and most importantly, empower you to make the right decisions when it comes to love. Number 9. He forgets about his phone on his first date with you. My dad once joked that in the future our phones will be hardwired into us or part of our biology. I'm sure that day is not too far away, or is already here with some biohacking tech, but the ironic thing is that it's not necessary anyway. Almost everyone I know under 60 doesn't go anywhere without their phone. It doesn't need to be surgically implanted, they already are addicted anyway. That's why him putting his phone down and not glancing at it on the first date is really key. Number 10. The two of you can't shut up on the first date. Another big sign that there will be a date 2 is when the two of you can't shut up on the first date. The conversation flows like a wild river on, and you find time flying by. It doesn't really matter what the topic is. What matters is whether you truly have a desire to speak and find it interesting being around him. Whatever the reason you want to talk, the important thing is that you do. When will he make his move? If a guy asks you out on a second date, how long does he usually wait? It depends on the man, but a day or two, up to a week is standard. But if you really want to find out if he's interested in seeing you again, don't leave it up to chance. Instead, speak to a real, certified advisor who will give you the answers you're looking for. I mentioned Psychic Source earlier. It's one of the oldest professional love services available online. Their psychics are well seasoned in healing and helping people. When I got a love reading from them, I was surprised at how knowledgeable and understanding they were. They helped me out when I needed it most, and that's why I always recommend their services to anyone with dating doubts. Check it out in the description below and get your own professional love reading.